Okay, so today we're going to get right into it. We're diving into the world of Markia Brown, better known as the Money Plug.
Yes.
She is an award-winning financial educator and content creator,
Yes, she is.
and an accredited financial counselor with a huge following, like over 1 million people online.
That is correct.
And we are going to try to understand her journey and then pull out the key insights
Yes.
on financial literacy, empowering communities, all that good stuff.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that this is tailored to you, the listener who wants to gain knowledge quickly and efficiently,
Yeah.
and who wants to, learn these things, but learn them quickly and get on with their life.
Exactly.
So we are going to unpack Markia's really fascinating path,
Yeah.
the financial challenges that she's observed,
Yes.
and her practical advice that she gives to folks.
Yes.
So to get started, Markia brings a significant amount of expertise to the table.
She does.
I mean, she's not just a social media presence, which is how a lot of folks know her,
Right.
but she's also an accredited financial counselor,
Yeah.
which means she's met rigorous educational and ethical standards to actually provide financial guidance to people.
Absolutely.
She's also a certified financial education instructor,
Yes.
a certified credit consultant,
Yes.
and she's a member of the AFCPE,
Right.
which is the Association for Financial Counseling and Planning Education.
Mm-hmm.
And her insights have been recognized by some very serious outlets like the New York Times, CBS News.
She's been on CBS Saturday morning. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty big time.
Yeah.
And what I think is really interesting is she has this foundation of discipline and experience that she gained from serving nearly 10 years in the U.S. Army as a veteran.
She did. She did almost a decade in the U.S. Army.
All right.
She was medically retired in 2019.
Medically retired. So that's an important distinction there. It wasn't just like, oh, I did my time, I'm out of here.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of people, when they think of the military, they think, oh, you're automatically equipped with all these essential life skills.
Yeah, I could see why folks would think that.
Right.
With the regimented schedule and the discipline and things of that nature.
Right. I mean, it definitely instills incredible discipline and structure and being on time and following procedures. But, it doesn't necessarily come with this handbook of here's how you handle your money.
Right, exactly. It's like investing and understanding credit,
Yeah.
or, even just like the nuances of how bills work.
Right.
When she first left the service in about 2014, that's where the gap was for her.
Interesting. So her first time leaving, which I guess we can maybe talk about a little bit later, was around 2014, which would have been about 4 years into her service.
Yeah, that's correct.
So it's almost like a key takeaway here is that even highly structured environments might not fully prepare you for all of life's financial realities.
Yeah, it is a good takeaway.
Right. I mean, it really highlights that you kind of need to actively seek out this information and this knowledge on your own. It's not just going to be given to you.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, right? You can come from very structured backgrounds, but there are these gaps in the things that we're taught or not taught. So.
Totally, totally. And it also just speaks to the fact that, financial literacy is so important that it needs to be its own thing that's focused on.
Yes, 100%.
So I think we should talk about that first time that she left the service.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Around 2014.
So that was a time of a lot of challenges for her.
Yeah.
She was dealing with a divorce.
Oh, wow.
She was in an abusive relationship at the time.
Oh, no.
And her mother was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh, my gosh. All at the same time.
All within that same time frame, yes. And in addition to that, the Army was looking to relocate her far from home, Baltimore.
Right.
So you can imagine all of this pressure.
Yeah.
And I think what's important for this conversation is she felt completely unprepared financially.
Right.
She didn't have any savings to fall back on.
Wow.
And the concept of a credit score was completely foreign to her.
Wow. So she had no idea what that even was.
She had no idea.
Wow.
And so I think her story is a great example of how sometimes adversity can be a huge turning point in our lives.
Yeah.
Because it kind of ignites this fire in you to learn and improve, especially in areas where you feel vulnerable.
Right.
And so this whole experience was a catalyst for her.
Yeah.
She had this determination that if she ever went back to the military, she was going to do it right.
Wow, that's powerful. That's really powerful. And she did go back.
And she did go back. Yes.
And this is where I think it gets really interesting for our listeners is her second period in the Army, in order to be in, she had to obtain a top secret security clearance.
Yes.
And I don't know if you've ever had to do that, but that is a very serious thing.
Oh, it is intense.
And that became like a major driving force behind her financial education, because one of the things that they look at is, are you financially responsible?
Absolutely. You have to have your finances in order.
You have to.
Or else they're going to be like, nope, we don't trust you with top secret information.
Right. So she took it upon herself to really like immerse herself in learning about personal finance.
She did it.
She started reading all kinds of books, going to workshops.
Yes.
And I think it's great to give a shout out to the USO and family readiness groups,
Yes, absolutely.
because they offer these really practical resources on things like budgeting, grocery shopping strategies, even couponing.
Yes.
And she described this period as like a hyperfixation on personal finance, just like completely dedicated to understanding how money works.
Yes.
And I think that really underscores for our listeners how a specific goal or requirement can be such a strong motivator.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you have to do something, you're going to do it.
Right. And I think it's also like, it wasn't just like, oh, I have to do this for the clearance. It was like she got interested in it.
Yes, exactly. And that's what's so fascinating is the deeper reason why she was so focused on finance.
Mhm.
She realized there was a lack of Black women in the personal finance world.
Right. And we've talked about representation before on the show, like how important it is to see yourself in the spaces that you want to be in.
Absolutely, especially for her.
Hmm.
You know, she's a mother to Black daughters.
Right.
So she wanted to change the narrative.
Yeah.
She wanted to show her children and her community that financial expertise and success has nothing to do with your background.
Right.
And it's absolutely achievable.
Love it.
So I think it just speaks to the power of representation
Yeah.
and how our personal experiences can drive us to create change for others.
Right. Because you might be going through something that's really hard that you think is like the worst thing ever. But if you look at it from a different angle, it can actually motivate you to help other people who might be going through the same thing.
Exactly.
So then fast forward a little bit, 2019.
2019.
She is medically retired from the Army.
Right.
So this is, not part of the plan.
No.
And then on top of that, she and her family relocate to Germany.
Yes.
And the global pandemic begins.
The pandemic, oh my gosh.
Right. So talk about, like, imagine having all this knowledge, all this financial knowledge, and then you're in a foreign country.
Right.
And you're in a pandemic where even things like, basic stuff like going to the grocery store suddenly becomes really hard.
Right. And you have to figure out a whole new system,
Yeah.
new language potentially,
Yeah.
new currency.
So this unexpected situation actually leads her to a really unlikely platform.
It does, which is TikTok.
TikTok.
Yes.
The home of, what is it, like dancing videos?
Yeah, a lot of dancing videos and, fun trends and things like that.
Yeah. So how did she end up on TikTok?
So even though she was overseas, fellow soldiers would reach out to her with financial questions.
So even in Germany, they're like, hey, Markia, what do I do with my money?
Exactly. Hey, girl, help me out.
Wow.
Because, she had a reputation for just being very open
Mm.
and freely sharing her knowledge,
Right.
breaking down complex topics,
Yeah.
making it really accessible.
Right. She's not one of those like financial gurus who's like, speaking over everybody's heads.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's almost like, for our listeners out there, this really shows how your expertise can be valuable in the most unexpected ways.
Oh, absolutely. And in unexpected places.
And unexpected places. So we have this personal desire to help her peers, which is really awesome. And
Yeah.
that intersects with the rise of this whole new social media platform.
Yes.
And then, on New Year's Eve 2020, she makes this resolution,
She does. She does.
which I'm assuming maybe there was a little bit of celebratory, beverages involved.
I mean, it was New Year's Eve, right?
It was New Year's Eve, come on. And she decides, I'm going to post daily tips about credit.
Yes. Credit tips daily.
So at first I'm assuming her audience was pretty small.
It was a very small audience.
Right, because she was just starting out.
And people chuckled at her.
They chuckled at her like, oh, look at Markia trying to be a TikTok star.
Right, exactly.
But then one of those early videos just took off.
It did. It went viral.
Yeah, and all of a sudden she had this growing audience of people who are like, hey, this is great. This is what I needed.
Exactly.
And I think this highlights for our listeners that sometimes the most impactful journeys begin with these small, almost impulsive actions.
Yes.
Right? Like, you don't always have to have this big grand plan. Sometimes you just got to start doing something.
And just be consistent with it.
Yeah, exactly. And so from that small beginning, the growth and impact has been really, really remarkable.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's so inspiring for so many people.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that really stands out to me is that she didn't just stop there. She became an accredited financial counselor, which further solidified her
Oh.
expertise.
Mhm.
And then she also became a certified financial education instructor, a
Yeah.
certified credit consultant.
Right.
She even had the opportunity to interview Nicki Minaj.
Yes, that was a great interview.
So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. But beyond the accolades, I think what's really inspiring is her core message, which is, if I could do it, just imagine what you can do.
Yes, I love that. It's all about possibility.
Yeah, it really is. And it's about showing people that it doesn't matter where you start.
Or your current circumstance.
Right. Financial empowerment is absolutely within reach.
Yes.
So something that really stands out to me as I was kind of learning about Markia and her story is she has this very proactive approach. It's not just about her acquiring knowledge, it's about her immediately wanting to share it with other people.
Yes, very much so. She's very passionate about sharing her knowledge and empowering others.
Right. And it's almost like she has this like jumping in mentality,
Mm.
which I think is really cool.
And she's always had this mentality.
Yeah.
Even her mother said that she was very headstrong from a young age.
Oh, wow.
She'd just jump into things head first.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so it seems like it's a consistent characteristic for her.
Yeah, it speaks to taking initiative. Yes.
And acting on the knowledge that you have.
And I think that's a key driver to success, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. And this goes all the way back to her childhood. So by the time she was in kindergarten, she was already reading at a college level.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right. Talk about an early start to learning. She was also a captain of the debate team, the basketball team, the cross-country team. Like, she was always diving into new experiences.
She's a go-getter, that's for sure.
Yeah, she is. And last year alone, she read 200 books.
200 books, that's incredible.
I know that's more than a book every other day. It's almost like a book a day. And it's really ironic that this same inquisitive nature, this tendency to like question things, to seek a deeper understanding, is what sometimes got her labeled as a can't get right person in the military.
Right, because in that type of environment, you're supposed to just follow orders,
Right.
not ask questions.
Just do what you're told.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that curiosity, that willingness to challenge the status quo became a huge strength for her.
Oh, excellent. And I think that's a really valuable lesson for our listeners, too.
Yeah, because sometimes questioning things can lead to breakthroughs.
Yeah, for sure.
It can lead to innovation.
It can lead to you actually understanding something rather than just blindly doing it.
Exactly.
And so this kind of brings up a point about how we view our own life path. And Markia talks about this concept of two timelines.
Yes, I love this concept.
Right. So you've got the personal timeline that we kind of create for ourselves, the goals that we have, the things that we want to do,
Our plans.
our plans. But then there's this broader, like, destined timeline,
Mm-hmm.
the things that are meant to happen.
Right. The universe has its own plan.
Right. And it's almost like she was so focused on her personal timeline that she kind of had to shift her focus after her medical retirement.
Yeah, because that was a major life event that wasn't part of her plan.
Right, exactly. And so it's about being open to these opportunities, these detours that you don't expect.
And sometimes those detours lead you to where you're actually supposed to be.
Oh, right, yeah. Sometimes the universe has a better plan for you than you have for yourself.
Absolutely.
I do want to make sure that we emphasize a point that Markia herself brings up, and I think it's really important for our listeners to understand, which is the element of privilege that played a role in her journey.
Right.
So she had a stable income during her time in the military,
Yes.
which provided a safety net
Yeah.
and allowed her to pursue her passion for financial education
Yes.
without the pressure of having to immediately replace that income to cover basic needs.
Right. She wasn't worried about putting food on the table.
Right.
Or keeping a roof over her head.
And I think that's such an important perspective to keep in mind when we hear these stories of, people making career transitions, becoming entrepreneurs.
Yes, because not everyone has that same privilege.
Right. Like, not everyone can just quit their job and start a business.
Exactly.
So it's important to, keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about some of the books that have influenced her.
Okay, yeah.
So when it comes to finance, she loves So This Is Why I'm Broke by Melissa.
Yeah. Great book.
I've
Yeah.
heard that one.
I have, yes.
And she feels a connection to the author, who is a first-generation Haitian American.
Yeah.
And she really appreciates that the book draws on the author's own life experiences
Right.
because it makes it so relatable.
Exactly.
And I think she also highlights how it tackles these financial skills in a way that feels genuine and resonates with people from diverse backgrounds, which I think is so important.
Absolutely, because a lot of the traditional financial advice out there doesn't really speak to those experiences.
Right. It's almost like it's written for like a specific type of person.
Exactly.
And so it's really cool that this book kind of breaks out of that mold.
It does.
What about her other top recommendation for a finance book?
Okay, so she highly recommends anything by Tiffany Alish,
The Budgetnista, right?
the Budgetnista, yes,
Mhm.
who she considers an idol.
Right. She's a huge fan.
She loves Tiffany Alish,
Uh,
and she really admires her story, of overcoming her own financial challenges.
right. Tiffany has an incredible story
She does.
of like digging herself out of debt.
Yes.
And she's also really good at explaining, things that can be kind of complicated.
Yes. She makes it so understandable.
She uses stories and examples
Yes.
that people can relate to.
Especially within the Black community.
Right.
She uses those stories without shame.
Yeah.
And I think what's really important is she focuses on the why.
Right. The why behind the decision.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss. They're just so focused on like, okay, here's what I need to do. But they don't understand why they're doing it.
Right. And if you don't understand the why, it's hard to stay motivated.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. So moving beyond finance books, there's this book, This Is Twice as Hard, Navigating Black Stereotypes and Creating Space for Success by Omi Soledad Sutherland and Rafaela Fiallo.
Yes, that's a powerful book.
Yeah, and this one really resonated with Markia.
It did. And it's about building networks as a Black woman, particularly if you're in a predominantly white space.
Right.
And if you're kind of a non-traditional person,
Yeah.
you don't fit the mold.
Right. You don't fit the stereotype.
Exactly. And I think that resonates with Markia because, she has her own unique style.
Right.
The green hair, the piercing.
Colorful language.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So she's had to navigate those spaces.
Right. And I think it's so important for people to like have these resources
Yes.
to help them understand how to do that.
Because it's not always easy.
No, it's not. It's not. So let's go way back to her childhood.
Got
So
it.
we're talking second grade.
Second grade, well.
She reads Native Son by Richard Wright,
Okay.
which, I mean, that's a heavy topic.
It's a very intense book.
Yeah, especially for a second grader.
Yeah.
But she believes that actually prepared her in some way.
It did. She said it kind of inadvertently prepared her for navigating these non-Black, male-dominated environments later in life.
Interesting. So even at that young age, it was like opening her eyes to the realities of the world.
Yes, to the complexities of race and social injustice.
Right.
Which, unfortunately are still very relevant today.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. Another book that she mentions, The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson.
Yes, that's a classic.
And she talks about how this book really started her on this journey of self-acceptance.
Yes, it was very important for her.
Understanding her Black identity.
Yes.
And kind of countering those negative societal messages that she had encountered.
Right, because there's so many negative messages out there.
Yeah. And so it's almost like it gave her this like deep sense of confidence
Yes.
that there were no limits to what she could achieve.
And I think that's a really important message for everyone, right?
Yeah, for sure.
To believe in yourself and your abilities.
Yeah, and I think it really shows the connection between like learning and adapting to different situations.
Absolutely.
Right. So the fact that she was such a voracious reader from such a young age, I think really helped her to develop this broad perspective and to be able to adapt to these different environments.
Right, because she was exposed to so many different ideas and perspectives.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's talk about some of the common financial mistakes and mindset challenges that she's observed in her community.
Okay, yeah, let's get into that.
So she talks about like the early days of her clubhouse room.
Who ninjas need credit.
Hood ninjas need credit. I love that name. And she talks about this feeling of being defeated before they even start.
Right.
Like this sense that the systems are rigged against them because of their background or their race.
Yeah, and that can be really discouraging.
Yeah, and it makes people not even want to try.
Right, because they feel like, what's the point?
Right, exactly. And so to counter that, Markia's message is very simple, but it's so powerful, which is, if you don't try, you'll never know.
I love that.
Right.
It's all about taking that first step.
Yeah, exactly. And she also really emphasizes the importance of overcoming that I can't mindset
Yeah.
and not being afraid to ask for help.
Yes, that's so important.
And I love the analogy that she uses of like blowing the whistle when you're struggling.
Right, because it's a signal that you need help.
Right. You're like, hey, I'm drowning over here.
Exactly.
And I think that's so important for people to realize that like you're not alone.
Absolutely not.
There are people who want to help.
And there are resources available.
Yes. And she really believes that, like, getting your finances in order is about so much more than just managing money.
It is. It's about unlocking opportunities
Right.
in all areas of your life.
Yeah. To pursue your passions, to build a secure future, to create a legacy. So for those of you who are listening who are like, okay, I want to learn more from Markia, I want to connect with her, what can I do?
So her website is themoneyplug.net.
Easy enough to remember.
Yes. And on her website, she has an online shop with digital products.
Okay.
And you could also find information about her financial counseling services.
Awesome.
She also has a mighty network community
A mighty network community, okay.
called Dollars and Cents Society.
I love that.
Yeah. It's currently in a soft launch phase,
Okay.
but it will be opening to everyone soon.
So folks can kind of get in early.
Yes. And she also has a Facebook group called Plugged in the Credit Clubhouse,
Okay.
which also has link to the Mighty Network.
Cool.
And you can find her on all social media platforms.
The usual suspects?
The usual suspects.
Okay.
Under the handle at the Money Plug.
So easy. Easy to remember. And she's even on PlayStation Network.
Yes. She is a gamer.
That's so cool. And if you happen to be in Los Angeles, she's open to connecting with you locally. So that's awesome. So I think a very common question that a lot of folks have, including our listeners, is like, when is the right time to start investing?
Yeah, that's a big question.
It is a big question, and I love Markia's approach to this because it's very community-focused. She really emphasizes leveraging her network of experts.
Yeah.
So she mentions folks like Kevin Matthews III of Building Bread, the team behind Better Wallet.
Yes.
So, like, she's got her people.
She does.
And her own counseling process, she takes people through a 4-stage journey.
Okay.
So first, it's about healing your relationship with money,
Okay.
which I think is so important because a lot of people have a very, like, negative relationship with money.
Yeah.
Then it's about actively working to increase your income,
Mm.
then establishing those effective money management strategies.
Right.
And then, after all of that, that's when she introduces investing.
Right. So you have to have that solid foundation first.
Right, exactly. And I think that's such a smart approach.
It is.
Because so many people are just like, oh, I want to invest, but they don't have the basics down yet.
Right. Exactly.
And because Markia doesn't hold any specific investment certifications, her focus isn't on providing direct investment advice.
Right. She's not a financial advisor.
Right.
She's a financial counselor.
Right. But she does guide her clients to those resources
Yes.
within her network.
She connects them with other financial influencers and educators who specialize in investing.
So she's like the connector.
She is.
She's like, here's the person you need to talk to.
Exactly.
And I think that's a really great approach.
It is.
What about teaching kids about finances?
So she highly recommends the book Amber's Savings Box.
Amber's Savings Box.
Okay. By Rachel, who you might know from Instagram as Pep Talks.
Okay, cool.
And drawing from her own experience homeschooling her 5 children.
5 children, wow.
Markia believes in the importance of introducing financial concepts early on. And it doesn't have to be just about money.
Right.
It's about financial concepts in general.
Right, like the value of things.